Okay, so welcome to today's webinar where we're discussing well-being, our well-being and our mental health. For everyone who has joined, thank you, first and foremost. If you are watching this back on the record, again, hopefully you'll be able to join one of our next sessions in the next few weeks. Everyone who is listening in is just in that just listen-own mode, so don't worry, we can't hear you. And we can't see you. So whatever you're wearing and whatever you're doing, then that's entirely up to you. You will have the ability to participate within this, though. We have got the chat facility on the screen. It's kind of on the screen now for those who want to start to, when we're walking through this, if you've got any queries or questions that you want to ask any of us, then please use that facility as we go through the next hour. Before I introduce our main speaker today, let me just welcome some of the intermediary partners who are helping and assisting me with this discussion today. So hello and welcome to Jane Benjamin of SBG. Hi, Jane. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Jane, you. Also, we've got Danny Belton from L&G. Lovely to see you there, Danny.
Hello. Hi, Joe.
It's once he's inside for once. Actually, all the conversations we've ever had over the last few months have been outside, and we can still see his tan glowing. Hopefully, you too can. And also to Rich Merritt. Welcome, Rich from Simply Biz. He's obviously got his barber's appointment already booked for tomorrow morning, I think, or his beard anyway. But thank you to the three of our partners for joining. Because why are we focusing on well-being and mental health first of all? Well, from Jane, Danny and Richard, we had much feedback in terms of how the members were feeling. As we all know, the mortgage market kind of reshaped itself overnight, and uncertainty, that lack of control, and the hourly kind of decisions that were being made definitely put a completely different spectrum on where we were in the mortgage market. But if you couple that to the personal pressures and challenges that we've all experienced, from being at home, schooling the kids, or just simply not seeing any of the loved ones on a basis, we just felt from Aldermore and our supporting partners, we just felt now's the right time for us to take a bit of time for ourselves for a change, think about ourselves and our well-being of how we've come through these last few months, and make sure that we try and reset ourselves in the right way. Now, I'm delighted to introduce David Gillick. So David will be, in a second, just putting his slideshow up and taking us through probably 20-25 minutes of his journey. So if you don't know David, he's been as an international athlete, both in European and World Championships and Olympic Games. And he also saw a high of winning MasterChef. So kind of lending his hand to something completely out of his comfort zone. So he's experienced many highs, but he's also experienced many lows. And David today will walk us through that journey that he's been on, but more importantly, some of the coping mechanisms that he's built over time that I'm sure we'll all take something from. So David, if you wouldn't mind loading up the screen and the slides, taking us for 25 minutes, we'll then come back to the panel to give their reflections. Use the chat if you want to ask any questions, or if not, as I say, I know Jane, Richard and Danny have got a few to ask David in the next kind of 50 odd minutes. So David, could you take it away, please?
Yeah, John, thanks for the introduction. If you just want to switch me over to a host, I can share my slides. I hope everyone's doing well. I know it's Friday, it's the end of a week, so I hope you've all had a good week. And you're very much so looking forward to the weekend. As John said, I do have a couple of slides that I'll bring you through. And I suppose, to be honest, the objective is to kind of share my story, the highs, the lows, and in particular, some of the strategies that I implemented, particularly in the last number of years, to deal with my own mental well-being, physical well-being, and obviously I have a family as well, and taking the people who matter most to me in my life into account as well. So just going to pop this up here. Here we go. So that's my introductory slide. As John kind of mentioned, plenty of highs and lows over the last couple of years. Athletics is, well, still is, thankfully, a huge part of my life. Been born in Dublin. I obviously competed for Ireland, and I managed to win a sprint gold medal in 2005 in indoor 400 meters at the Europeans. And at the time, it was Ireland's first gold medal in a sprint event in about 83 years. So it was quite a big thing in terms of sprinting here in Ireland, but also for me personally, it was quite a huge thing. I then continued with my sport. I decided to relocate. I moved over to Loughborough University in 2006, and that became my home for nearly 8 years. I wanted to better myself. I wanted to put myself in an environment where I was challenged every single day with some of the best athletes, not only in the UK, but also in the world. Jet Ennis, Mo Farah's, Martin Rooney's, people of this world. And I was in that ecosystem every single day. So, it gave me a lot of confidence, self-belief. I wanted to better myself. I was now in a fantastic environment to do so. And I was very, very driven. And that's kind of something that I really want to get across today in terms of, the change that we're currently seeing. Just bear with me 1 second. My slides seem to have given up the ghost. Apologies. There we go. I think, as John kind of mentioned, we're looking at a lot of uncertainty, and it's constantly changing. When I look back at my career, I was very driven. I had courage to sit down and have a goal, and I was committed to that goal. I loved communicating with the people around me, be my coach, my training partners. I loved collaborating with the wider team, so the likes of a strength and conditioning coach, a physiotherapist, a nutritionist. All of these elements became my team, and I loved having a bit of fun. So having camaraderie. And I think right now we're seeing an awful lot of change across all of these areas, because I suppose over the last couple of years, you've got yourself into a routine, something that you enjoy doing. You know your team around you. You have your plan. You have your goals, be it professionally, but also personally as well. I'm sure there's a lot of people that had holidays planned, and maybe there was little goals that you had for yourself. Obviously, in terms of your professional career, you had things that you wanted to achieve, and your own kind of targets. And for me, it was very much the same. The little picture you're seeing now, that little pyramid in behind those big yellow circles, that was my plan. Okay, at the very top of that, I had my goal. I wanted to become one of the best athletes over 400 meters. I wanted to make a global final. I wanted to run 44 seconds for 400 meters. If I did that, that would get me to a world-class level. What did I need to do? I broke it all down into my little 1%. Every single day, what were the little percents that I could do? All of these things would then add up, and you know what? The long-term goal would come true. The little images around you, or around the little pyramid you see, those are things that motivated me. And the question I always get asked would be, how did I keep myself motivated? And I just reminded myself of my past successes, and that was one huge thing. Reminding myself of the challenges I overcame, the setbacks I had, and how I negotiated them and got around them. So, trying to be a little bit optimistic, looking at my own strengths and how I achieved those things. And to be honest, it didn't happen overnight. It took a while. I had success when I first moved to Loughborough. I retained that European title in Birmingham 2007. I qualified for the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games didn't go as well as I liked, but I learned from it. I came back from that, and I had my best year 2009. I made the World Championships. I came sixth, and I ran inside 45 seconds, around 44.77, which put me in top 5 in the world that year, which was a great achievement. And then everything kind of changed. And this is where I suppose today I want to get across, because we are in a world right now of uncertainty. We are in a time where we're looking for the timelines. When will things go back to normal? And you know what? We don't know. There's no manual to negotiate this. We're trying to find our feet. I know tomorrow in the UK, the pubs are opening, the barbers are opening, and they're terming it Super Saturday, So again, who knows what's going to happen? I know in Leicester, there's another lockdown. So again, it's constantly changing, and that's going to impact, you guys, but also, the wider public, and in terms of how we deal with family, friends, and how we go about our work. So for me, that change happened in 2013. I decided I was going to retire. And that's when it all changed. And for me, I had a huge impact on my mental well-being and my mental health. And that's one of the things I want to get across today as well, is just create a bit of awareness around our mental health and our mental well-being, because we all manage change and uncertainty in different ways. We're all individuals, so we negotiate it in our own way. But the impact can be really, really challenging. And for me, I really struggled, and I'll be open and honest with you there. I really struggled with my mental health and my mental well-being. I'd never experienced anything like this before. I'd never had so much change in a very short space of time. I went from being an elite athlete for nearly 12 years and then spending 2 weeks and then panicking and taking the job working for a sports brand because you know what? I didn't know what to do. And the impact of change is very important. And I know there's a lot of people on the call today, and the industry you're working in has gone through an awful lot of change in a very short space of time. And if you just look at the screen on the very left, you know, there's people been furloughed. I'm aware that there's people self-employed, there's people working for themselves, there's people obviously involved in bigger networks and bigger teams. But within the market, we've seen a bit of a bounce, and then that leads to anxiety. Will this last? What's going to happen in 6 months' time? We're seeing a lot of regulatory pressure. Again, you're spending probably more time now dealing with customers. You're talking to customers. You have to, relay all this information. And you know what? You're putting all that time in, and you may not even get a transaction at the end of it. So again, that can cause a lot of frustration and a lot of anxiety. I know from talking to the team as well, HSBC have that rush in the morning time, 7:30. You got to be there. You got to get on it. And, if you don't get it, how does that impact you for the rest of the day? Is it, oh my God, you're pulling your hair out? So, all of these have a huge impact in the way we view ourselves. Again, the market, less products, loan to value percentages, all of these things. You're now working from home. Your routine is completely changed. So again, sometimes when that commute into work, that's when you dial up a little bit and switch on the day. Then that commute home, that was when you maybe wind down a little bit. That's all gone. We're getting out of bed and we're straight onto phones and laptops in your pajamas. And before you know it, it's the afternoon. You haven't even had a break. You haven't even had breakfast. So again, all of these things are having a huge impact in ourselves. But then you factor in your family. So we're working from home. What does that actually look like for you? Is there kids at home? Are you trying to, as John kind of mentioned, homeschool? Are you trying to, look after everyone and keep the ship steady? And all of these things can have a huge impact in our anxiety. Do we feel a little bit overwhelmed? Are we worrying? Are we stressing about what's going to happen in 6 months' time? And then you suddenly idolize the past. You want it all to go back to the way it was. And unfortunately, that may not happen. So again, what I find in situations where we're impacted by change, sometimes we're not present mentally or physically. We're very much looking at how things were and what we'd like it to be, and then suddenly jumping a little bit further down the road. So that drives an awful lot of stress. And again, it's I know people will interpret change on different levels, again, through your professional, but also in your personal life as well. But if we look at it from a point of view of an holistic way, we then lead into the element of stress. And this is something that's quite important now. And I suppose when you look at the whole coronavirus and how it's transitioned from country to country, if you look at some of the research and data coming from, say, Spain and Italy, who had it initially, there was a huge impact on mental health and mental well-being and the services that would cater for that. And a lot of people probably may not know that they are stressed. They may not know how it's impacting. You might feel a little bit tired and then think, well, I haven't done anything during the day. Why am I tired? You might feel a little bit worried, anxious, frustrated. It might be like the littlest thing is causing you to stress out. Again, that's the emotional side of it. Maybe at home, you can't focus on your work. Maybe you're getting easy distracted. There's a lack of creativity. That's your mental impact. And then your spiritual. You're kind of questioning things. Maybe you've had time to reflect and you're questioning your purpose. You're disconnected from people. Again, isolation. You're not having that face-to-face. So all of this kind of stress impacts us on a number of levels, okay? But mainly your mental health, your physical well-being, and how you go about your day-to-day. Now, the biggest thing about kind of stress is the reaction to it, all right? So again, in terms of psychology, they talk about this as darts, okay? So the first dart is it's unavoidable. As long as you live and as long as you love, you're going to experience pain. That's the first dart, okay? The second dart is what we do to ourselves. So take this example, okay? You're at home. Those of you that have kids, I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. Some days I go downstairs and Oscar has all his toys all over the floor. I walk in and I stand on one of his toy cars. Okay, it hurts. It's pain. It hurts. What do? I turn to Oscar and I say, Oscar, why did you put that there? And then I feel bad at myself for why did I give out to Oscar? It's not his fault. And then my wife comes in and she's like, why are you giving out to Oscar? And then you know what? There goes another dart. and I feel guilty and I feel angry at myself. And that's what I'm saying about the second dart. It's our reaction to change. So the first dart sometimes is unavoidable. The situation we now find ourselves in is it's unavoidable. That's where we are. And it's about accepting that. The second dart is what we do. Now we have a choice. We can either sit down or stand up and throw darts at ourselves all day, or we can actually, you know what, okay, how can I react in a different manner or a different way to this? So I'm sure there's people on the call that have those situations at home where there's a little toy or a little car, or you've burnt yourself and you're trying to do the dinner, and you've chopped a finger, and you know what, you lose it. But again, it's creating that awareness of how we react and what is actually driving that initial anger or frustration. Okay, so stress again can impact on different levels. As I said, I'm going to be open and honest with you all here because I did struggle. I was diagnosed with depression. I had anxiety, and there was times when I felt there was no way out of this. I struggled for nearly 3 years. I kept it all in house. I didn't talk about it, and then eventually I got to a point where I needed help. My wife Charlotte was 8 months pregnant on Oscar at the time, and I realized I couldn't bring a child into this world if I wasn't right myself. And that was the catalyst. That was what really drove me to actually seek a bit of help. So when I started going to counseling, I developed a couple of techniques, a bit of a toolbox, and it's simple, basic things. And this is the thing about resilience. We're hearing quite a lot about resilience at the moment, but it's very much bounce back ability. And I can guarantee there's people on this call that have gone through some tough experiences. Maybe it's personally, maybe it's professionally over the last number of years and in your lifetime. It's tapping into that and actually, well, how did I negotiate that? How did I get through that? And for me, by communicating and talking, it was a learning. It was a kind of a journey of discovery. I actually began to understand what made me tick, the little things that would set me off. And for me, it's going back to the basics. So you see a few of them here. Sleep and recovery, putting a bit of onus on that. Again, working from home, there's a lot of people that might kind of just crack on, putting hours in. You're not fueling yourself correctly. You're not hydrating yourself correctly. Before you know it, you get the kids to bed, or you then kind of think, I'm going to catch up on emails, and it's midnight. And then you're going to bed and you're up early to get to HSBC, 7:30, you're on that and you're not resting. So again, your sleep and recovery is important. Healthy food and exercise. Maybe it's getting out of the house. Maybe it's you feel a bit overwhelmed at home, cabin fever. I need to get out of the house for a little bit. That could be the catalyst just to give a little bit of clarity in your head. Planning, prioritizing. Again, for me, putting a bit of structure over the course of the day and the week. The 3D technique. This is cognitive behavioral therapy. So Steve Peters was a sports psych that worked with British Cycling back around 2012. And he talked a lot about how he got his athletes to name the little voice inside their head. Because anytime we get change or a lot of uncertainty, sometimes the voice inside the head can be really loud and really negative. And we tend to kind of believe that. So the 3D technique, distract yourself. So becoming a little bit aware of the negative internal dialogue. Distract yourself from it, then distance yourself. So again, for me, it's not David talking, because if it's David talking, I'll let David keep talking. And you know what? I'll believe everything he says. I've named him Chopper Read, right? Chopper Read is an Australian criminal. Google him, a lunatic, okay? It's Chopper inside my head. And when Chopper's talking, I can then dispute it. I can actually argue. So if you see me walking down the road or driving a car and having a full-blown argument, it's not with me, it's with Chopper inside my head. And that's my way of dealing with the negative internal voices. And again, I've seen that myself, and I've heard Chopper shout loudly over the last couple of months and weeks because I'm dealing with change as well. I work for myself. My wife works. She's currently furloughed. We've 2 kids. We're all at home. Again, it's trying to navigate your way through it. But certain little things, tapping back into success. And I mentioned that at the start. Looking back at your own successes, seeing how you overcame challenges, because that gives you confidence. And then advice, mentor, and support. So tapping into your own network. Who are the people that you can rely on, the people out there that maybe you're having a difficult task with work or a difficult customer. Is there a way of negotiating this? I don't know. Maybe I'll pick up the phone. I'll give someone a call that has gone through something similar, and together you get your way through it. So look, this is a kind of a few of the little things that I've kind of implemented. And again, it was by actually discussing, opening up and talking. And I think that's vitally important. But stress can be good. And I think a lot of people, might have found themselves maybe feeling a little bit more energized now. Maybe there's a bit of clarity, there's a bit of focus. Here's my priorities. Here are the things I need to get done. And that's all really, really important. You feel mentally challenged. So now, you're getting up and you feel maybe you're a little bit more productive. You feel a closer connection with the people around you and your purpose of what you're going to do. And I think it's that balance that we're looking for, managing your stress. and looking at techniques that work for you as an individual, be it exercise, be it looking after yourself, sleep, recovery, whatever it is. But sometimes we can kind of look at stress as a very negative thing. But I think it's important that we accept that there is always going to be stress, and you're going to go through times when it's up and down, and it's just managing that a little bit better. For me, I do kind of look at this kind of whole area holistically. Your mindset's incredibly important. Looking at that growth mindset, accepting where you're at, how can you negotiate it? What are the things that I can't control? Building in a form of physical exercise. I'm not asking people to go run 5Ks or 400 meters, but maybe it's bringing John's dog for a walk, taking it out, going for a little bit of exercise, getting out of the house, getting a bit of clarity in the head, your rest recovery, as I've kind of touched on, and then fueling yourself correctly. Because again, people at home, we all do it. We're onto a task and we just go right through and we're not fueling ourselves correctly. And that's impacting how we feel about ourselves. Okay. So, there's a lot to this, but I think if you could kind of take little pieces out that maybe resonate with you a little bit more. And I think it's important right now to manage yourself. And it's an area that we're hearing quite a lot about over the last couple of weeks and months. Self-care is extremely important. Okay. So you want to look at it from a point of view of, am I looking after myself? Am I allowing time for myself? Because we have a lot going on, be it family, job, customers, colleagues. Are we actually looking after ourselves? And there's great little things out there, be it exercise, maybe it's reading the book, or some apps, Headspace, Calm, these apps that you can actually tap into for a couple of minutes over the course of the day. That could just be, the catalyst for you to maybe just level things a little bit, because we all have times throughout the day where we're up and down, energy, how we kind of are dealing with various tasks. So refresh, refocus, and rejuvenate, really, really important. Add a bit of structure to your day. So looking at, your timings over the course of the day. Yes, you don't have that commute, you don't have that lunch break, maybe you don't have that coffee and that laugh, catching up with your colleague. Maybe you're not coaching the kids, that soccer team that you used to coach in the evening time, that was an outlet for you, maybe that's gone. So again, trying to look at the week, trying to look at the day, give it a bit of purpose. When are you on, when are you off? So put boundaries around. Not feeling overly guilty that, you're comparing yourself with colleagues who, yes, they're putting in the hours, but you're as productive, but you're a bit like, should I answer that call? Do I need to answer that call? Maybe I can go out and play in the garden with my kids for an hour or two. All of that stuff is vitally important. And then communicate with yourself. So listen to yourself. How are you feeling? And I know, when we talk about mental health, sometimes people can look at it as a bit like airy fairy, but trying to communicate with yourself a little bit and actually be aware of how you're feeling and the emotions that you're feeling. And again, communicate with others. We're all in a virtual world now. You may not have seen your colleagues face to face. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Maybe there's someone there that might be struggling and they tend to keep it all in house. Maybe just give them a call. How are you? Because that for yourself will give you a bit of a lift, because you feel like you're helping someone. So again, friends, colleagues, is vitally important. And again, looking after other people, because we can all focus on ourselves. And I'm aware that there's people on the call here that might be looking after other people within your team, within your network. There's no manual to this. And this is what I said at the start. We're all trying to find our own way through it. So I think it's important to be transparent and authentic. We don't know the timelines. We don't know when things are going to go back to normal, if they will go back to normal. I'm not sure what the point is in terms of the valuations that you guys do. When you can do them virtually, when you can do them face to face. All of this is a little bit still unknown. Will there be another lockdown? We don't know. I think the human side is important. I know the leaders within your own organizations, they're trying to negotiate it as you are. So again, there's a human side to this. Empathy, empathize with people. You don't have to have the answers, but if you can understand each and everyone's own kind of personal situations, that can really help, and it can pull people together in times of a crisis, in times of uncertainty. Pulling people together is vitally important, and you'll have a strong team at the end of it. Again, being optimistic. I was saying to the guys before, we've gone through some serious change, and you guys know better than me in terms of your industry. 10 years ago, there was an awful lot of change. Look back at those times. How did you negotiate it? How did you get through it? Because I think being optimistic is extremely important. I'm not saying you have to be all dancing and all hands, but I think it's just a case of putting a smile on your face and trying to accept that there's challenges and then overcome them. Okay, so overall, I know people here like an investment or two, so it is looking after yourself right now. It is challenging times. I myself I I suppose, got back on track. I was back running a couple of years ago, through opening up and actually communicating and talking. And it was an investment in myself. It was an investment in the people around me. And I think that's extremely important. So again, we can look at this negatively, or we can look at it positively. And I think if you were to look back over the last couple of weeks and months, there's a lot of positives out there as well. So I was trying to focus on those and seeing what worked for you, but been aware of how we talk to ourselves, how we communicate with ourselves, and trying to look after ourselves as best we can. Okay, so I've thrown an awful lot at you there. I'm going to hand back to John, and we're going to open up a bit of discussion. So please feel free. Any questions or anything like that, please fire away.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll come to Jane in a second, but many things kind of jumped out straight away for me in terms of communicating. I think we have become, because we're at home, more email driven rather than just picking up the phone. I think that was one straight off the pad that I kind of noted down. And actually, I don't get stressed or worried too much in life. But actually, I've noticed the best and worst in me, I suppose, over these last few months. And even something like our Easter holiday clearly got cancelled. Trying to get the money back for that holiday was probably the most stressful thing that I've probably gone through in many a month, and I'm sure others have, where it really got to me, whereas things never usually do. So something as little as that, which was always probably going to come back to us, got a bit stressful. So, but thank you, David. That really gives us those great insights. And again, before I come to Jane, if anyone has got any questions they want to fire in, there's on the screen, there's like a speech bubble option that you can fire any chats in. But if not, don't worry, we have got a few questions. But Jane, if I could come to you first, just in terms of your reflections, yourself personally over the last few months, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay, thanks, John. Yeah, really interesting, David, because a lot of the things you were talking about there actually absolutely resonated. And I was just sort of reflecting from a work perspective. So the changes that sort of hit the mortgage market were relentless when COVID sort of hit. And our own Sesame and PMS teams were absolutely flat out trying to update and support everybody else, our advisors, our partners, the whole market. We were doing so much stuff and there was so much change. It was like a tsunami of trying to sort of keep everything up to date. I guess that I'm very lucky to work for a business that encourages sort of flexibility. We have strong support for employees and well-being. And the priority for everything at SBG was to ensure that we supported our people. That's our lender partners, our customers, our brokers, everybody that we came into contact every day. And many of our own staff had never ever worked from home before, so it was all very different. And then we talked about kids and back to John and his dog. Kids and pets became part of our everyday life, whether it be Zoom calls or whatever. And from a personal perspective, in February, I rescued 2 ex-racer greyhounds before lockdown, total accident, but great timing. So I say I rescued them. In reality, actually, they've rescued me too. And they've become a welcome distraction to get me away, to take them for a walk, to try and bring them into our home life. So yeah, it's been sort of a double win. And I think generally the time over the last few months has given me time to stop and think and reset. Normally I'll be up at 5:30 running around like an idiot around the country all the time. And actually, prioritize both from a business and personal perspective. What is really important? Why am I doing this? And is there a better way to achieve more, both personally and professionally? And I think one of the biggest things and takeaways from me is the way that the people around me, both personally and professionally within business, have come together, working collaboratively, whether it be distributors, lenders, industry bodies. Everybody's worked together to share ideas, closer than ever, to make sure that everyone supported each other at a really uncertain time. That's really refreshing. I didn't expect that. I didn't see that coming. And finally, I think the main thing is, thank goodness that mental health is now talked about as the norm in our society. rather than being a taboo subject that it's always been. There's lots of challenges. There's lots of change of routine for people on this call and in our industry, it working in different ways. And we should all be aware of that. And I'm absolutely amazed if the majority, or will be amazed if the majority of our listeners and people who reflect on this haven't been anxious at some time, or felt some of those emotions that David put up on the screen. It's the fear of the unknown. And actually, it's okay not to be okay. And people around me are kind and supportive. And through all the heartaches and struggles of COVID, I really believe that it will have brought out the best and the worst in some cases in people. And we really need to pull on that and remember that when we get back to some sort of a norm, and make sure that we don't sort of go back and compromise our mental health. So that's really my main reflection, I guess.
Thanks, Jane. Danny, do you want to build on that, if you don't mind?
Well, God, she's good, isn't she? I mean, there's a lot of great stuff that Jane said, and I think as a fellow distributor, you know, our role changed overnight from what we were to what we've become in terms of helping, supporting, you know, really keeping our broker community updated as much as we can, listening to the lenders and just being there. But I think she's right. It's, you know, the way that we are looking out for each other is far greater, whether it be through a lender, through a broker, through staff. And I, you know, I have a team of people around me, as Jane and Richard will do themselves. And I try and speak to them as often as I can, but I'm not really interested in what they're doing work-wise. I'm interested in them as individuals. How are they coping? What are they doing? What is going on for them in their lives? You know, how are they dealing with the situation? And that just to sort of reassure them, as Jane said, it's okay that things may not be right. You know, I'll tell my people, you know, if they've got a partner there and then he's going to have a couple for 15 minutes or so, go and do it. Because this is things that will enable them to build better relationships, to probably be more open in discussions at home about how they're generally feeling, and of course being open with me as well, which is really important, because we can then understand the issues and work through. I know I've got a fair bit of stick across the industry about being the one and only person that seems to live in a garden, but the reality is, you know, when I'm sitting out there with a sun on my back, there's no better feeling. You know, we spend so much time in offices, whether it be, you know, out and about or even in our homes. And for me, maybe I'm just lucky, but my internet extends to my garden. Why doesn't everybody else's? And so take advantage, because we always feel better when we sit in the sunshine, do we not? And it's great to sort of, you know, hear the birds and the trees and God knows what else going on around you. And that puts a different perspective. That takes some of the stress out. And I think the key thing for me, and Jane alluded to, we get up at silly hours in the morning to go and travel. We get stressed getting to the train. So that's the start of our day. And that sets the tone for the rest of it. Well, having not had to do that for some time, that's really quite pleasant. And I can't say that I'm really excited about the prospect of having to start it again. And I'm sure we will in time, but it's taking the opportunity and the time to really assess, as Jane says, what is valued, what do we really want to do, and how do we work? You know, personally, I'm doing a lot more exercise, and I'll talk to David a bit more about that in a sec, but I'm cooking more, I really enjoy it, and I get more time with my family. Well, that's got to be a better place than I've had for many, many years. But to actually see colleagues in this environment, in a more relaxed environment, you get to know people that much better. And therefore, you can actually have more personal and in-depth conversations around things you wouldn't normally talk about. Yeah, I think we're actually writing better business, probably more business now, because we are actually being more collaborative and actually helping each other and generally looking out for everybody else's well-being. So I think there's a lot of benefit to what we've been through, but we can't lose sight of the fact there has been some tragic times as well for a number of people, and it has been incredibly tough. I feel for those that live on their own and maybe in flats and whatever else. Yeah, and we've got to look out for them and be there supportive for them. But it could be the person next door to you. It could be someone in your family who's just hiding things. And it's how do we make sure that we do recognise those symptoms and just be there for people, accepting and say, it is okay, we are going to go through some difficult times, but yes, we can absolutely get through this.
Thanks, Danny. Just to acknowledge, we did take an action point in one of the reviews we had in May to send him some Factor 50, because he was glowing by the end of the review that we had together. But as you can see now, he's still glowing today. But
Absolutely.
Richard, do you want to build on Jane and Danny's any other observations, mate?
Yeah, sure. The 50 is not strong enough for me, so I don't sit in the garden. But I think some fantastic messages, both from David and Danny and Jane, and we all saw a version of David's presentation before the pandemic, and it was so relevant and important then, and I think it's even more so now. And we sort of talk about lockdown and the fact that it's promoted this new way of working, and we've got all the time in the world and what have you. But I think it's also important to recognise that for many people, they've never had less time. They're trying to manage doing their job, managing essentially a business that's in trouble around them, managing their household, and then if you've got children, almost certainly having to bear the brunt of school teaching as well. And when that's set against literally the most stressful backdrop that any of us have probably ever been through, the health concerns, the financial concerns, what's going to happen with the market, it's really tough. And for me, I think one of the things that really jumps out is, and David references this in his book, but we live now in a culture of comparison, and we spend a lot of time looking at what others have done. And certainly I've found myself throughout this, have I shouted at the kids too much? Have I supported my partner enough? Do I call my mum and dad enough? Am I a good enough supply teacher? And you can spend so much time sort of assessing what you do against what you think other people are doing. And that's why the coping mechanisms, the toolkit that David talks about is really just absolutely crucial. I agree with what everyone said. I think as a society, we've made huge improvements in the way that we deal with this topic. What I really, really hope post-COVID is that we see not only improvements in the way that we deal with it all as individuals, but looking at how businesses adapt to these things, how they support people, what changes they can make, so that they're looking after their staff absolutely central to their culture. So that if you've got the working parent, for example, making sure that they have that we don't lose this. They still have time to be able to spend with their family. The nicest part for me is having had sort of 20 years of rush hour into the centre of London to go to an office, is actually being able to sit and have meal times with the children. Equally, they are arguably the most stressful times, because when you end up shouting at them. But I think it's really, really important that we don't lose what we've gained, and not just on a personal level, as I say, but the businesses can embed the change. And I work in a business, just as Jane and Danny have said, that puts people very central to it. But not all businesses are like that, and I hope that that's what we learn from that is that you've got to support your staff. You can't make them all happy, but you can support them if they're not.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard, and thanks to each of you for just sharing your personal reflections, because it's very different for each of us. So look, there's a couple of questions, but let me start the ball rolling, Jane, if you wouldn't mind, if that's okay. I think you've got a couple of questions that you were gonna kind of fire into David. Is that all right, Jane, or do we want to start? Is that okay? Go on, you fire away.
Yeah, please. So my first question, David, is what 3 priorities are needed to be a top athlete, and how do you motivate yourself to get there? You've sort of touched on it, but if you can elaborate, that would be great.
Yeah, no, look, it's a really important question. I think, the easiest one, you could look at sports people and go, okay, a bit of talent there, natural talent and stuff like that. Yes, I was able to run fast, but I think the level that I got to, we were all able to run fast. And you're kind of looking at, okay, well, how can I better myself? I think, throughout my career, I viewed feedback as critical. And actually looking for it, so constructive, and being able to listen and take it on board. I think sometimes, when people give you feedback, you can take it personally. You can take it as a bit of a hit, but in actual fact, like maybe it's a good thing, and we need to hear that. So I think taking on feedback is important, and using it constructively. Second, I think, would be looking at your own strengths and weaknesses. You know, it can sometimes be hard to go, I'm weak at that, or it's an area for development. So, you know, when you realize that is when you go, okay, I need help in that area. And I think, again, looking back at my own both kind of like running career, but even post career, those are the areas that, okay, like I don't have all the skills, but I can get them and I can learn them and I can work with people who might be skilled stronger than me in a certain area. And I think when you know that and you're acceptable to that and you bring people in around you, I think that's really, really important to reach your own kind of goals. And then finally, I would say trust in your gut instinct and gut feeling. I think sometimes we can suppress that. Sometimes we can push it away. And, you know, Richard mentioned about kind of comparing yourself to others. We can listen to other people and we can almost let their voice dictate our choices. Whereas in actual fact, you might know the answer and you know in your gut feeling that it's the right decision. And I think sometimes we need to back ourselves. And I think in terms of my career, that was definitely an area that helped. Didn't help all the time. Sometimes I made the wrong decisions, but you know what, like majority of the time, listen to yourself and trust in yourself and back yourself is extremely important.
Okay, thank you. Can I have another one more, John, before
carry on
hogging the questions? So I saw a couple of people on your board. So I think there was Nelson Mandela, and was that Muhammad Ali on there? Yeah. So my question was going to be, who is the most inspirational person you've met and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. Michael Johnson was the former world record holder of 200 and 400 meters, and people might know him from BBC athletic coverage. I used to idolize him until I was racing in Rome one time, and I bumped into him and asked him for an autograph, and he wouldn't give me one. So we're getting rid of him. But this might be a controversial one as well. But Roy Keane, I'd be a big Roy Keane fan. Okay, I know his punditry style and some of his antics and comments might be controversial, but growing up in Ireland, like this guy was a phenomenal. He wasn't the most talented footballer, but what I loved about him was his work ethic. And the way he became a professional footballer, it wasn't like he got scouted and he was viewed upon and brought over. He actually wrote away to all these clubs and, you know, really pushed it out. And just his kind of his work ethic and how he went about himself, I think at his peak of his career was, for me, very inspirational. Very nice guy. I know you look at him on Sky Sports and you think, I'd hate to meet the fella, but he's actually very personable and he was nice and very encouraging. So, you know, you kind of caught me on the hop with that one, but I'll fly the Irish flag and say Roy Keane.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
You're definitely pleased like the Aldermore team, definitely based out of Manchester. There's a very heavy United fan in there, definitely. Danny, if I can come to yourself, I think you've got a couple of questions as well.
Yeah, just probably the one actually. David, obviously, as a finely tuned athlete, and something I've been aspiring to for many years. Not entirely sure I get in there. But I find forms of exercise really helpful in today's world, and I do things every day from running to cycling to Pilates. The Joe Wick stuff I find very entertaining. But I'm sure there's a number of people out there who may have just sort of started to do a bit, but we sometimes find it very hard to continue and carry on. What advice would you give for someone who's just sort of starting out? You know, what should they really expect? How should they set their own sort of personal goals? And then how do we get rid of that sort of I'll do it tomorrow type syndrome?
Yeah. Look, really good question, Danny. And I think we've seen it over the last couple of weeks and months that people have started to exercise a little bit more. And like what I would love to see is people carrying that on. And the danger is that could be the first thing to go when, I suppose, life takes over. But I'd always say to people who are looking at kind of starting things off, take it slow. There's always a danger, let's say, in the world of running where it's a marathon, it's a half marathon, it's a 10K, it's a 5K. But in actual fact, start even smaller than that. It's looking at your calendar and your day and your week and going, okay, well, when can I get out for 20 minutes, half an hour, and put it in the calendar. So be Thursday, maybe once over the weekend. Don't try and do something every single day, because the danger with that is that it'll just get a bit boring. You might even get injured and you might just hate it. You know, you might just absolutely hate it. And that's one key element as well. What do you enjoy doing? Like, you know, people might enjoy going picking a ball around. People might go a walk, or they might hike, or they might run, swim, whatever it is. Make sure that you're doing something that you actually enjoy and find fun. The other element I say is, if possible, build in a bit of a social element to it. So whether it's going with a group, whether it's a buddy, you know, not all the time, but again, if you can factor that in, it's a bit of a social interaction, and you know, together we're better. And that's one thing I'd always kind of promote with people, is build that social element to it as well. But I think in terms of motivation, give yourself a goal. One of the biggest successes over the last couple of years has been the whole park run movement. And the reason it's worked really well is because on a Saturday afternoon, after your run in the morning, you get a little notification and people see their time. And it's just challenging yourself. It's amazing, you know, just that it's ranked. You're not challenging anybody else but yourself. And I think that motivates you. If you see gains and if you see you're improving, that's the biggest driver and the biggest motivating factor. And, you know, I think having a target, something to aim for, is vitally important. But again, for people starting out, because that's the first hurdle, you know, it's that mentality of going, you know what? And I always say to people, the hardest part is actually putting on the kit and the trainers. Once they're on, you might as well go, you know, so it's just getting off that couch. But simple things that I would do, and even when I got back into running, it was using lampposts on the road. Run to one lamppost, walk to the next. Do that for, you know, a couple of minutes. Maybe there's a football pitch, a soccer pitch or something near where you live. Run the length, walk the width, run the length. So you're varying it up. Because the danger is, if you're new to, say, running, and you go out and you continuously run, it's a lot of impact on your joints. The danger is you get injured, you just get fed up with it, and you don't do it ever again. So it's taking it in small strides. And I think for your general fitness, keeping it low level, just get out, get active, build that base deep and build it wide, and then you can kind of refine as you go. But again, it's just getting into that routine and building a habit is paramount.
Very true. And I think I've tried to do a lot of that myself. And you're absolutely right. You know, if you do overdo it, it does hurt. And, you know, and especially at our age, you get very stiff and very sore very quickly. So it's always good to have a day off.
And vary it, Danny, you know, vary it, like whatever it is. If it's cycling, if it's running, maybe then try and do a bit of swimming or something non-weight bearing. So variety is the spice of life. So just change it up as you go. You get out and you're in the fresh air. That's the main thing.
That's right. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, David. Question we had related to that, really, about resetting the next day and the next day. And I think you've given some goals there to assist on that as well. So, no, that's great. Richard, what about yourself?
Yeah, and first of all, I wish I'd had that advice when someone threw down the 5K challenge for me, because I managed 4 and then couldn't walk for 2 days afterwards. My knees seized up. But I think the main thing that I wanted to ask about, we've heard lots about people thinking about making changes post-COVID. You know, we've obviously talked about lots of lifestyle changes. You know, there's been a lot of stuff written in the trade press about the number of people wanting to move, you know, for more outside space, people wanting to change job. But what advice would you give, David, to the people who can't, and you know, the people who are trapped because of the market, they can't sell their house, you know, they can't change their job, worse, that they might have lost their job or be yet to do their job. You know, what advice would you have for those who, you know, can't see a way out at the moment?
Yeah, and look, it's a really important point, because there is a lot of people in these situations, and as things progress, you know, you look at any of the news outlets, you know, there's job losses and things like that. So, you know, it is a bit of a worrying time. And I think the important thing is that don't lose sight of that goal. You know, it may not happen when you want it to happen, but it's definitely looking at, okay, well, how can I work towards that goal? And there's a huge area about kind of acceptance here. And it's very interesting. Like I went back and I did sports psychology, and there's a Kubler-Ross basically came up with this cycle of events when you go through change or you go through bereavement, and basically it's about loss, and it can affect us on different kind of on different levels. Okay, so you know, if you lose someone like bereavement, you go through a cycle. Likewise, if you have a goal, something that you're pinning all your hopes and dreams around, and then suddenly you lose sight of that, you can feel angry, you can feel frustrated, you get fed up. Again, internally, that voice is extremely negative. So it's going back to accepting where you're at. And when we accept where we're at, that's the pit of it. Then we can begin to kind of work our way out of it. So I think you kind of mentioned the mindset in there as well. It's accepting that, you know what, this mightn't happen when I want it to happen, but it still can happen. You know, don't give up on that dream, work towards it, let that be the motivating factor. But again, even kind of bringing it back to the mindset of that, we can get very fixed in our mindset. So you think, oh, it's not going to happen, I'm giving up on it. Then you're very negative, but it's the growth mindset. And I might have mentioned this before back in March, but I read a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's a professor over in the States. And it really had a change for me, because I was very fixed in my mindset. And if I didn't get something, or if something didn't happen straight away, I looked at it really, really negatively. I needed to become a little bit more growth in my mindset and actually use that as a motivating factor, something that I can work towards. And I think the point that I'm going to get to is it's about having that purpose. And I think, you know, sometimes when it comes to change or something that you really want for yourself, be it a new house or a new job, it's the purpose. Okay, you look at that and you go, that's my purpose. Okay, and then comes the element of truth. What are the gaps? You know, what's stopping you? And then you look at actions. Okay, what can I do? And that's the big thing with people who might find themselves in a situation where they're not making the move, or they can for whatever reason. Okay, what can I do? What can I control? What are the actions that I can put in place? And this can go along levels from exercise to maybe it's like sleep, maybe it's been mentally and physically present with the people that matter most to you, or maybe it's your job, or it's your house, whatever it is. But then comes consistency, and that's the key. It's if you can actually pinpoint actions that you need to do in order for you to achieve that goal, and get consistent at it, well then, you know, your mindset becomes a lot more growth orientated. You feel a bit better about yourself, and that kind of goal that you had that may not happen next week or next month or next year, well, you know what, it's still on the horizon, and it's still a target and something that I can work towards. So I think that's vitally important. But overall, it's that acceptance piece is vitally it's critical at the moment as well.
So, Dave, can I just pick up on that point around mindset? You know, we've been in industry, and Jane and Richard have been around a long time as well. And we, pre-COVID, we did a number of things just because that was the way it was always done. And I think with people's mindset, they in general, we always just do things because that's the way. It's that routine, it's that consistency, that's what we like. And yet here we are in a position where we're being forced to change. What would you say to people that have actually perhaps struggled to change?
As humans, we tend to do what we're comfortable doing. You know, we tend to not rock the boat a little bit. And if we're told, or there's a protocol, or there's a system in place, a procedure, we tend to adhere to it. But sometimes the greatest developments can come in uncertainty and times of been challenged, and time like what you guys actually spoke about there previously after I kind of gave my presentation. It was so refreshing to hear, because I think you mentioned it as well, Danny, that you're doing things now that you would have never done before, because you know what, it wasn't the norm. Whereas now you actually find that you might be doing things better than what you did. You know, maybe you're collaborating better. Maybe you're dealing with your customers and the brokers and all the various people that are in your industry better. But we're not allowed to say that, because it feels like that we're in a negative environment, and we watch the news every night and we see what's going on. And, you know, we can't actually turn around and go, do you know what? I'm actually enjoying this. Do you know what? I'm finding that I'm a lot more productive. Finding that I'm getting my work-life balance a little bit better. I feel like, you know, I'm doing better at my job. And I think the point is that if you can actually find maybe a few little examples of that, and a few ways that you've changed and collectively you've changed, well, you know what, then that's for the better. And I think, you know, we're just, it's in the human nature to stick to what we know. And we're actually risk adverse, we're actually change adverse. We don't want that, because it's a bit challenging, it's a bit uncomfortable, it's a bit unknown. But you know what, sometimes that they're the biggest moments that you'll grow and you'll self-develop as an individual, but also as a team, and maybe even as an industry. So I would say bring on the change. You know, walk like a peacock and just say, yeah, bring it on, I'm going to deal with this, I'm going to smash through it, because that's the only way that you're going to better. And sometimes, you know what, like, adversity is like, it's like that rock in that stream. You know, you find a way around it. You know, you get around it, and you know what, you look back and you think, you know, yeah, over that, on to the next one. So I think it's really key in terms of what you're saying, the point you're making, because if we allow ourselves to accept where we're at, and we can find a way around it, well, you know what, it could be for the better.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, and time has kind of flown. Can't believe it. I'm sure we could have, you know, many more questions. And I was just going to ask, as a final kind of go round, of what's the positive kind of takeout, just following your lead, I suppose, David, in your presentation, you know, to end on that positive note and ensure that, we do leave ourselves in a positive place. So Jane, are you okay? Can you lead off just in terms of your positive reflections, and then we'll go around?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing everything. I mean, it's great to sort of be sitting here and discussing this. We wouldn't have been doing this a couple of years ago. And my reflection is, whatever support is available, we should take it. And it's okay to have a conversation with anybody, because they're probably feeling as rotten as you are. And actually that is fine, because if it helps you, then that's no big deal. Just take it, and then everybody just will be stronger for that. So yeah, let's make the most of this opportunity from a sad situation, I guess. So thank you, David, for sharing that.
Thanks, Jane. Annie?
I would say it's been an interesting time. Look at what we've perhaps achieved personally, how we've actually coped, take the positives from that. Dispel the negatives. There's not a lot of point in dwelling on it. We move forward. Certainly use the network of people around you. And if you can, just put a smile on your face and go, yeah, I'm doing okay.
Good. And Rich?
I think for me, David used the word in his presentation a few times, and it's one that we use a hell of a lot in the industry. I hope we can just all start to be a lot more collaborative on a lot more things. This has been sort of a collaborative way of getting through this. We've all had to muck in with lockdown, reliance on the sort of heroes, the everyday heroes that have supported us throughout this. But I think so much can be achieved when you work in tandem with other people. It's not a big race, it's not a competition, and I would like to think that we can all have more collaborative businesses and a more collaborative society out the back end of all of this.
Fantastic. And I'll give David the final word in a second, but can I just say thank you to Jane, Danny, and Richard for giving, like I say, your kind of own views on the subject, but also hopefully your members, from the recording or the live version, hopefully will take something back. As for those who are listening, I've definitely taken 2 or 3 things myself, and I've listened to David probably 3 or 4 times. So there's always something new that you kind of reflect and think, actually, I can add that now to my kind of daily routine or better structure. Again, appreciate your comments, Jane, Danny, and Richard. And I suppose the last word, David, over to you in terms of, we're at that point of a reset moment in most of our lives, and we should take that positive. But what are your final words or comments?
Yeah, look, firstly, just a major thank you to everyone, to Jane, Danny, Richard, John, yourself. I know Sarah as well for organising it. But I think the important thing is that we're having a discussion and we're creating awareness around mental and physical well-being. I think that's really, really important. I'd also go back to something that I mentioned in terms of my presentation. A big number for me was 44, okay, 44 seconds. And as we head in, I'd really ask people, I beg you to do this, okay? When you get off this call, life's going to take off again, be it work or be it family or you're cooking the dinner, whatever it is. If you could just spend 44 seconds on yourself. So before you switch off, just reflect. 44 seconds, maybe there was something that was said in this call, or maybe you're just going to review the week or review the last 3 months, whatever it is. Look at the positives. And you know what? If we want to make change, we have to act on it in the next 24 hours. If we do so, well, then you know what? Consistency. Okay, then you're into real change. All right, so that's my homework for you all. It is the weekend, we all have a bit of time now, so it's just a pleasure. I really mean that. I want to say a massive thank you for everyone who got involved, and it's refreshing. I get a lot out of this from listening to you guys talk as well. So just go forward, 44 seconds, and don't throw darts at yourself.
David, thank you all, and for those listening, I really appreciate your attendance, and have a fantastic weekend. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye.